After first being announced almost 9 years ago, The Flash has finally sped into movie theaters. But after so many years of production, changing directors, rewrites, reshoots, and all of the issues with Ezra Miller, how's it going to do? Flash fact, not that good. This is the Flash's first solo movie, ending off basically one of the last to end off the DCEU. Started with the Snyderverse going back into 8, 9 years ago when Man of Steel first started. So as we're coming to the end of the Snyderverse, the DCEU, before James Gunn reboots everything, what do we got? Well, we got a movie which is kind of a mess because you see the whole idea of this movie is based on the comic book series Flashpoint. And if you're familiar with Flashpoint, you know that the basic theme of this movie mirrors that. Barry Allen, the Flash, goes back in time to try to save his mom. The results end up changing history. In the comic books, he changed history so that Bruce Wayne was killed and his father, Thomas Wayne, became a very murderous Batman, while his mother, Martha, why did you say that name? Martha became the Joker. Aquaman and Wonder Woman had an affair, ultimately leading to Aquaman's wife, Mara, getting killed by Wonder Woman, and then Themyscira and Atlantis going to war. All the while, we finally find out the Superman has basically been, hidden away by the government in a secret facility, being kept from sunlight. So he's a weakened, basically, young person without any abilities until he finally gets in the sun. And then, of course, everything goes wacky. So you would think that that type of movie, based on that, would require a lot of buildup. And you'd be right. Unfortunately, that's not the way DCEU was doing things, because they just kind of threw it all together, trying to, put the cart before the horse.
Not a great plan.
So we have the loosely based Flashpoint starring Ezra Miller. And as I say, overall, I didn't hate it like I thought I was going to hate it. It's not as awful as I thought it would be. I'm not saying it's good. It's a very middling movie. I would put it as a 4 or 5 on a scale of 10. There's really nothing exciting about it, in my opinion. It was quite boring at times. I mean, you could feel the length of the movie. Again, this is another movie that's almost 2.5 hours long. Really, screenwriters, editors need to learn how to pare down stories to make it concise and easy and enjoyable to watch, and not a freaking slog. But like I say, it's not a great movie. It's not a good movie. It's just a movie. I walked out and said, I went to a film. That's not to say there aren't some good scenes. There are a few good scenes. There are some scenes that are actually pretty well acted. But they don't make up for the overall mess that this movie is. Because, like I say, we have several stories going on in here. We start off with basically a Justice League story with Flash, Batman, and ultimately Wonder Woman helping save a bunch of kids in the hospital and stop some guy stealing some poisonous gas or poison. So it's very much of a Justice League fight theme. Then we get the Barry Allen story, which is him trying to save his mother, which ultimately ends up resulting in him going back in time, changing history, and getting stuck back in time right before he got powers. And then he encounters his 18-year-old self, the younger Barry. And they become sort of, their own team. So now we have kind of a buddy cop situation going on. Lastly, we then have basically Man of Steel redo part 2, telling another version of the Man of Steel with Barry this time trying to stop Zod, who suddenly comes in out of nowhere. But there's no Superman because apparently Superman was killed. But we do have an imprisoned Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, who similarly as in the comic book, was left kind of depowered, being kept prisoner. It is too much at once. Too much at once. They tried to put too many things in there, and they relied too much, I think, on nostalgia bait to try to get people interested. And again, this movie would have significantly benefited from paring it down. Now, the issue is, unfortunately, if you do that, then you're going to have to get rid of some things that are drawing people to this movie. I think the thing that they've really, sounds awful, they shouldn't have used Batman, because they made this more of a teen movie than it needed to be. If it's your solo movie, you should be the star of that movie. But instead, we have sort of a Justice League light, um, that the focus is taken away from the primary character. But at the same time, I think that's kind of needed because that's going to tie into what I think the other thing's important to look at this. Besides this movie being a mess, there's obviously some performances in here that need to be talked about. And the first one, of course, is the star Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller is not a leading person. I don't know what term to use these days. So he's not a lead star. He's not a lead actor, in my opinion. In the Justice League and Batman VVS. No, he wasn't in Batman VVS. In Justice League, rather, he was kind of comic relief. And that's honestly, it's more of a Barry Allen trait. It was more of a Wally West trait than a Barry Allen trait, if you know your flashes. So I don't think Ezra has a gravitas to pull off a leading superhero character. He's kind of goofy, um, and and when he first appears, he's so awkward. It's almost as if they're saying he's on the spectrum of some sort. He acts ridiculous. He's all fumbling, and not like Superman fumbling. This is like serious social anxiety issues. So that's our superhero who this movie's relying on. But then something really weird happens. So Ezra then changes. Barry Allen changes. When Barry Allen goes back in time and meets his 18-year-old self, he's no longer the awkward person with social anxiety, doesn't know how to act. Suddenly he has a little more confidence. It's very strange because now the 18-year-old Barry Allen is the person lacking the confidence and acting socially awkward and weird. I think they kind of had to do that to make the two seem very different because the Barry Allen that's portrayed at the beginning is annoying, and going 2.5 hours with that annoying type character would be rough. Imagine 2.5 hours of two of them. That's insane. So I think I don't think it's consistent. And again, that's another point where I think this movie's a bit of a mess. Totally doesn't make sense. Supergirl, of course, shows up, Sasha Calle. And you know what? I was kind of surprised. I really thought she was going to be presented as a girl boss, a Mary Sue character. Admittedly, she does figure out how to use her powers way too quickly in a very poorly CGI'd fight. But she wasn't bad for what she did, was basically just stand in as the good guy Kryptonian. Obviously, they weren't going to go with Superman for a variety of reasons, I suppose. But she's okay. She's all right. And she wasn't a focus of the story. So you can deal with her. In fact, my girlfriend actually liked the character. She actually she was hoping that maybe there'd be a movie with her where we could learn more about her and then imagine her disappointment. You can imagine her disappointment when I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. Everything's kind of going to get rebooted. And yeah, you won't be seeing her again. Sorry. Yeah, she's gone. Lastly, let's talk about the Batman. Well, first off, I was glad to see Ben Affleck again playing Batman because other than the slightly off character, significantly off character, Batman in BVS, in my opinion, I enjoyed Batman in Justice League in the sense of I like how Ben Affleck portrayed him as an older, experienced Batman. So it was good to see him put the cape of cowl on again. And it was part of a good action sequence where you got to see Batman really, act as Batman. It's odd seeing him fight in daylight since you normally don't see Batman during the daytime. And the costume did not look good. I don't know what they were trying to do. Looked a little bit armored up. Perhaps maybe Ben Affleck wasn't in good enough physical shape to do, just the normal suit like he had in BVS and BVS and Justice League. So maybe that's why they added the armor. But overall, I kind of like Ben Affleck as Batman here. And of course, the big draw is Michael Keaton. This is our nostalgia bait. Everyone come back, watch Michael Keaton. And you know what? Look, I saw Batman in 1989. I remember going with my mom and dad, my brother. It was like family movie weekend, and it was great. It was great seeing Batman on screen. Michael Keaton, of course, had detractors at the time, but he's clearly shown that he did well as his interpretation in Tim Burton's Batman. So it's good to see him again. He was very comfortable in the role. And I liked how he had, again, a certain level of, I don't want to say gravitas again, but I guess I will. Uh, to his character as a seasoned Batman. This is very much the Batman you could see being Bruce Wayne and Batman Beyond, training and tutoring Terry McGinnis. Would that could happen is not going to happen. The one thing I didn't like, which didn't make sense to me though, was his fighting. Now, seeing Batman fight is always great, and I think they did do a good job of showing how Batman fights in this. I thought the choreography for Batman fighting is what you would think of as the character. But at the same time, we all know that Michael Keaton's 70 years old. So he's not playing 38-year-old Batman anymore back in 1989. In fact, even when he did in 1989, he was certainly not showing the level of physicality that we expect to see from a Batman character today. So for me, it kind of took me out of, the reality of the situation where somehow 70-year-old Bruce Wayne is, jumping around, doing acrobatics and fighting like a guy in his mid-30s. So that was a little off-putting, but still is good to see him play Batman again, and I thought he did well with the character. The last thing that you really want to think about in the movie is the CGI, which is, yes, very distracting. It takes away from the movie. Again, I went with my girlfriend because it's good to have the normal person perspective, and she called it out. She's like, that stuff looked bad. She goes, she thought she said there were points where it was good, but definitely towards the end, she said it just looked bad. And she's right. And I think when a person who is not, steeped in the genre and the movies, like like I am, like some other people are, when they call it out, then it's a problem. So that looked bad. I know the director said it's because it's intentionally bad. Well, that's just bullshit in my opinion. That's just covering up the fact they didn't have. Well, they certainly had time to finish up the effects. I just don't think they had the money. I know Nerdrotic said the studio probably said, you're done. You're going with what you got. We spent too much money on this because they spent a ton of money on this. And the last thing, of course, we were told there would be a bunch of cameos. There were not that many. We did see a CGI Chris Reeve and Helen Slater, Superman and Supergirl. We saw a very CGI'd Nicolas Cage as Superman fighting the giant spider, which if you know the story with John Peters, you know what that's all about. So it was weird. It looked weird. It looked bad. And there's so many things they missed. I mean, why not Tom Welling? Why not Brandon Routh? Why not Tyler Hoechlin? Why not? And why no Grant Gustin? Why no John Wesley Shipp? Where are all these other ones? I mean, we got Adam West in there, but we didn't get a Christian Bale. We didn't get a Val Kilmer. What the hell? Why not? I don't know. But it is what it is. The movie overall, like I say, it was a film. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but certainly not the level of some people saying greatest superhero movie ever. So, lastly, what I want to talk is where we're sitting right now in the theaters. So we have a review here on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's got a 67% overall. And I like to, it's better to look a little deeper, and you go to the top critics. These are the Rotten Tomato top critics, and it's not good. That's a 50%. That's 50%. So that's your Rotten. All audience, verified audience is 85. All audience is 80. That's not bad. People are enjoying it, I guess. But where were they going to look for money this weekend? The numbers said they're shooting for 70 million. And that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. In fact, Deadline put this out today. Flash loses speed with $60 million 3-day opening. They're saying 72 million, but they're counting Monday since that is a federal holiday. That's Juneteenth. So they're trying to, I think the studio is trying to say it's going to be 70 plus million, including Monday. That's not the weekend. It opened with 24,500,000. That's Friday. That's what it was estimated at. And then it brought up some of the other more recent ones. Look at Black Adam. Black Adam, which was regarded as a flop, almost 27 million. Wakanda Forever, 84 million. Shazam, Fear of the Gods, 11 million. Spider-Verse opened over 50 million on a Friday. Guardians did almost 50 million themselves. I think what you got to do is then look at Black Adam. I think that's going to be the way you measure it at this point, based on those numbers. Black Adam opened with 67 million. So yeah, uh, Deadline's probably right. It's not going to open well. Uh, there are things to like in it, but overall, it's a mess of a movie. And it's, I think this is truly the swan song for the Snyderverse. I know we got Aquaman coming out, but we all know things are getting rebooted. So yeah, in the end, this is not a good movie. It's a film. It's a mid-range film, 4 or 5. Probably don't bother going to see going to see it at the movies. Wait for whichever way you prefer to watch a movie at home. Until next time, click like, click subscribe. I'll see you later.